All right, we're going to talk about the bevel deformer, and before we get to that, I want to just explain something a little bit more visually. So we're going to take a kind of a side trip here. So I'm going to go ahead and select this Polymesh 3D, or really you can select any primitive in your stack, go to make Polymesh 3D, and then once you've hit that and you have a Polymesh 3D, go down to the Initialize submenu in the Tool menu and hit Q Cube. That's going to give you a Q cube with a resolution of 2, 2, and 2 across either side. Go ahead and hit the X key to make sure we're symmetrical across the X axis. And then go into BZM, your Z modeler brush, hover over a face, hit your spacebar, and go into Q Mesh, let's say Polygroup Island. And now what we can do is every single one of these polygroups here, we can just Q mesh these out, and you can continue to Q mesh these out. And as we go over here, you're going to see because this polygroup here is all orange, you can Q mesh this entire island up if you want to. Or if you just want to go in one direction, what I like to do is hold down Alt and then start painting the surface, and now this will treat this whole area as a polygroup island as well. So you can go through here and start pulling these out. If you want to clean up any of these edges, all you need to do is, again, with your Z modeler brush, hover over an edge, hit your space bar, go to Insert Single Edge Loop, and then hold down Alt, and that'll go ahead and delete edge loops as well. Let's go ahead and go to the top here. I'm going to hover over this face here, and you're going to see when I'm hovering over this face, there's going to be an orange line that points out. It might be a little bit hard to see, but you can see the orange line is now pointing this way, and then if I go over here, the orange line is pointing this way. So if I go hover over this face, hit space bar, go to Bridge, Connected Polys, turn on Circle, turn your specified curvature up to 100, your specified resolution to 8, align to normal, and then triangle sides. What that's going to do is allow me to just touch this side here, and it'll go ahead and connect those polys. And you can actually do this anywhere you'd like, where you have two connected polys, and that orange line is telling you which connected polys you're going to end up connecting. So you can go this way, you're going to undo that, and you can go this way, etc. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a connected polys up here. And then for this top, what I'm going to do is let's go to this line here, and again, we'll go to Insert Single Edge Loop. It's maintain that setting because that's what we had initially when we hovered over an edge. So I can just hold down Alt and touch that and delete that edge. I'm going to hover over this face here. We're going to go to Delete a Single Poly, and then just delete those faces right here. If I hover over an edge, let's change that to Bridge, 2 holes, and then the rest of the settings we can keep the same: spline, interactive curvature, interactive resolution. So I can touch on this edge and then on this edge, and we can just bridge those two surfaces here. Now the reason I'm doing this is I'm trying to get a lot of different angles to play with before we start talking about beveling. Let's go ahead and hit Control W to make this all one polygroup here. And then in our tool menu, let's talk about creasing first, and we can also show this visually with polygroups as well. So if we start with creasing, what we can do is you're going to see we have a crease tolerance here. It's set to 45. So if we crease this and we zoom in, you're going to see it's dotted, a double dotted line along these edges. So now if you hit the D key, that's going to give you dynamic subdivisions, and you're going to see these all stay smooth and then these stay creased. If you do Shift D, and dynamic is actually this menu right here. You're just toggling this button on and off with D and Shift D. You can see we're going from smooth to faceted, and it's giving you a preview of what it would look like with these edges creased and the other edges not creased. Now if I go over here to uncrease all, that's going to remove all the creasing, and now if I hit D, it's just going to average all of these vertices and then Shift D to come back out of that mode. Now what this crease tolerance is doing is if I snap my viewport to the right here, you're going to see this angle right here is 90 degrees. And if you take two 90-degree angles, that's 180 degrees, and then 270, and then 360. So this angle with this geometry on this corner is 90 degrees. If I take this crease tolerance here, then I raise this to above 90 degrees, let's set it to 97, and then I hit crease, nothing's going to happen because this angle right here is less than, it's 90 degrees. We're looking for any angles 97 degrees or over. But if we drop this down to just below 90 degrees, let's say 88 degrees, and hit crease, it's now going to crease this angle because this angle is 90 degrees, which is larger than 88 degrees. So you can use this setting here to dial in exactly how much creasing is going to happen on this object. So for example, if I crease anywhere between 90 and probably a pretty low number, you're going to see it's going to stay kind of the same. So like 90 and say 50 degrees, nothing really changes. However, if I keep dropping this down and hit crease, so now we're at 19 degrees, and you're going to see it's starting to pick up some of these angles here because we snap to the top. These angles right here are greater than 19 degrees. In fact, and these ones haven't been picked up yet because they're a little shallower. If I keep dropping this down, let's say down to 1 degree, it'll go ahead and pick all those up. So now pretty much every angle in my object is creased. Now you're going to see these interior lines aren't creased. If you want to crease all of those, you can say crease all, and that will crease all of your edges here. You also notice underneath the crease menu here, you're going to have a bevel width. If I start dragging this down, you're going to see every single area where a line was, you can now put in a bevel. You can also add resolution to your bevel here, so it'll put in more or less divisions on there. And of course, you can change your bevel width. So if we undo out of that, and then we go back to where we had all the edges creased, but then these flat areas weren't creased, if you bevel now, just change that bevel width, you're going to see it's going to leave these interior edges alone, and it's only going to bevel where we had it creased. Let's go ahead and undo that. Let's do uncrease all. We'll set that crease tolerance back to 45, and then hit crease. And now when we bevel, it's only going to bevel where we have those angle changes on our mesh. So having said all that, let's go ahead and do uncrease all. Let's hit W. Now when we go, so we have X symmetry turned on. If we go into any of these new deformers, we're going to start again with bevel here. If it yells at you that you have symmetry mode turned on, go ahead and just hit X to turn it off. And if it doesn't, just continue as you normally would. Now by default, it looks like we do have a bevel value in here as 0.076. If it doesn't, then it's just going to look the same. But you're going to see we can now bevel all those same edges that we had. And the reason why it's grabbing those edges is because if you grab, so here's our bevel, basically our bevel width that we were controlling earlier. Now if we go down here to resolution, you can increase or decrease that resolution. So let's go ahead and bevel this quite a bit, and then we'll increase that resolution in there. And then this crease angle is determining where these creases are happening. So again, you're going to see if our crease is higher than 90, it's not going to crease anything. And then as soon as we drop below 90, it's going to crease those edges. And if I can keep dropping this down, it'll eventually pick up more and more edges that it'll find to bevel. So let's go ahead and drop our resolution back down to 0. And you can see as we continue dropping that down, it's going to find more and more edges to crease. So you can crease, or it's going to find more and more edges to bevel. And then once it's beveled them, you can go through here and you can change that bevel width. So if you just want a little bit of a bevel, you can go ahead and dial that in. Now let's go back up here to this deformer. We'll hit delete. And I mentioned earlier that you can also use polygroups to kind of demonstrate this. If you go here to polygroups, you also have a group by normals. So we have the max angle set to 45. If we group by normals, you're going to see everywhere an angle is more than 45. It's going to go ahead and group those areas. We got red and purple and blue all the way around this object here. But again, with this max angle, if you crank this up to above, the max is at 90. So if you crease by normals at 90, nothing's going to happen because all of these angles are 90 or less. As you start lowering this down, it's going to start getting more and more, and as we go very, very small, it's going to grab even these tiny angle changes up here. So if we set this group by normals up to 45, hit group by normals, you can also go back to the crease menu here. You can say crease polygroup. That'll go ahead and crease all of those polygroups that were dictated or put in by the normal angle changes, and then you can go through here and you can bevel as well. So just a few different ways to show you not only using the bevel deformer, but also using ZBrush functionality to kind of illustrate how these automatic edge selections are working. Now the crease deformer is going to be very similar to the bevel deformer, so what I'm going to do is we'll start again with that Polymesh 3D, go down here to initialize, make a Q cube, go to BZM, hover over a face, and we'll go ahead and do a Q mesh, polygroup all, alt grab, or alt paint any of these faces here and just start pulling out, and we'll talk about creasing. And on this edge, let's hover over this edge. We'll hold down the space bar. We'll go to slide edge loop complete, and we can just slide this towards the middle. And one more time, we'll go hover over a face, hit the space bar, or hold down the space bar, and we're going to go to bridge, connected polys, circle, specified curvature 100, specifies resolution 8, aligned to normal, triangle sides. And we'll go ahead and round this out again. Let's hit Control W to make this all one polygroup. Hit W, and now we're going to go into our deformers here. And next to bevel, we just talked about, we're going to do crease. And crease works in very much the same way. You only have one slider here, and that's going to choose the crease angle. So as we drag this higher than 90 degrees, just like we talked about, if these angles right here are they're 90 degrees, if you're higher than 90, it's at 129 right now. It's not going to crease anything, but as we drop this crease angle below 90, it's going to suddenly start creasing these angles. And as we make this smaller and smaller, you're going to see at the top, it's going to start picking up these angles right here because we're at 14 degrees, and these angles are now less than 14 degrees. So the smaller you make this, the more you're going to crease, and then the larger you make this, the less you're going to crease. And if you go all the way down to 0, it looks like it's going to do a crease all operation. So dial this in where you want. Let's go ahead and keep this at, like, say 51. We'll go ahead and go back into the gear. We'll accept this. And now you can, for example, hit D for dynamic. If you go up here to dynamic subdivisions, we see we're toggling that on and off with D and Shift D, so we can get a preview of what this is going to look like if we were to subdivide it. And more options available to you in the crease menu. You can go down here and you can start beveling where the creases are. And just like we showed in the earlier video, you can actually, if you wanted to, skip this creasing part and go straight into beveling and just change your bevel width and the crease angle so you pick up more or less creasing on your object and then bevel immediately.